What truly happened that night, when swarms of drones dared to strike at one of the world's most impregnable naval strongholds? On the night of October 27, 2025, the calm waters of the Black Sea turned electric. Hundreds of drones, airborne and seaborne, launched in a synchronized offensive, all aimed at Russia's heavily fortified Sevastopol base in Crimea. Intelligence pointed to NATO as the mastermind, betting everything on a new doctrine: that sheer numbers, guided by digital brilliance, could overwhelm even the most layered defenses. This was more than a clash of machines. It was a collision of confidence, strategy, and ambition, a battle to define the future of warfare. The attackers gambled that cutting-edge technology and massed autonomous force could crack Russian defenses wide open. They believed that quantity, precision, and speed would finally outpace entrenched human experience. Yet, as the night wore on, expectations crumbled. Instead of a triumphant breach, the world witnessed a reversal that stunned analysts and war rooms alike. Russian defenders did not just hold, they exposed the fragility at the heart of the drone swarm myth. With disciplined coordination, shrewd use of electronic warfare, and layers of human-led tactics, they dismantled the offensive piece by piece, revealing how easily overconfidence and blind faith in automation can backfire. Why does this matter beyond the headlines? Because overestimating the power of new technology, while underestimating human ingenuity, is not just a tactical error. It is a strategic blunder that endangers national security, squanders billions, and leaves nations vulnerable to real defeat. Sevastopol's defenders delivered a lesson that military leaders and policymakers worldwide cannot afford to ignore. So how did this ambitious assault unravel, moment by moment? Let us dissect the secrets and missteps behind the Battle of Sevastopol, from the first warning to the last echo of combat. To understand the full implications, we need to wind back to the operations planning and the critical assumptions that shaped both sides' strategies. Every minute of that night tells a story about technology, doctrine, and the unpredictable edge of human judgment. Before even a single missile arced skyward, the real struggle for Sevastopol had already erupted in the invisible realm, inside command centers, across shadowy digital battlefields, and in the feverish calculations of military minds. The contest began not with explosions, but with the tireless hum of NATO reconnaissance aircraft circling the Black Sea. For weeks, relentless patrols swept overhead, high-soaring global hawks and agile reapers mapping every radar sweep, every ship's wake, and every electronic pulse radiating from Crimea's rugged coast. This was no routine reconnaissance. It was an orchestrated, methodical campaign. Every movement logged, every defensive signature catalogued, every possible attack route rehearsed and refined. Day after day, the regularity of the overflights signaled only one thing: an assault was inevitable, and Sevastopol was the bullseye. The air above the sea became a giant chessboard, each sensor sweep a move, each encrypted transmission a clue. For those at NATO's planning tables, the stakes soared far beyond the simple destruction of Russian ships. The objectives were psychological as much as military: to shatter the illusion of Russian naval invincibility, to broadcast the West's technological supremacy, and to demonstrate a new era, where a swarm of unmanned machines could storm the gates of even the most fortified base. If the plan succeeded, Sevastopol would not just bleed steel and oil, but lose its aura of safety. The world would watch, and the message would be unmistakable. To make this vision real, Western strategists massed a formidable force: scores of long-range strike drones paired with cutting-edge unmanned boats, all synchronized by satellites and digital control. The concept was blunt in its ambition: overwhelm Russian defenses with sheer numerical force, trusting that speed, automation, and precision would trump even the deepest defensive lines. In this calculus, old laws of attrition and gradual escalation were obsolete. The future would be decided in minutes, by machines acting at the speed of code. But across the water, Russian commanders were neither blind nor passive. Each NATO drone sortie, every burst of unusual radio traffic, Every deviation in flight path was meticulously tracked and analyzed. The Black Sea Fleet's leadership braced for the coming tempest, fortifying defenses and tuning their electronic warfare networks to a razor's edge. Crews drilled relentlessly, learning to expect the unexpected, and every battery, radar, and jammer was primed for the moment when the storm finally broke. Both sides understood the gravity of the moment. For NATO, the risk was monumental. If Russian preparations proved superior, their entire strategy could collapse in a single, catastrophic failure. For Russia, the threat was existential. Not just to the fleet, but to national prestige and the myth of impenetrability. Any lapse, any miscalculation, could mean disaster on a scale that resounded far beyond the Black Sea. In modern warfare, the first battles are often fought in the shadows, through sensors, signals, and the silent maneuvers of adversaries anticipating each other's next move. To ignore this intelligence contest is to stumble blindly, repeating the fatal errors that have toppled empires and lost wars. Here, the fate of Sevastopol hung not just on firepower, but on cunning, adaptation, and the ability to see the invisible threads pulling the world toward conflict. As the final hours ticked away and tension reached its zenith, the long-anticipated night arrived. What followed would redefine the global understanding of drone warfare. Now, we examine the unfolding of the Sevastopol attack, moment by moment. The opening moves of the drone assault exposed the strengths and weaknesses of both sides. Each second brought new surprises and escalating risks. When mass drones clashed with a living, breathing defense, theory shattered on contact with reality. Just before dawn, the attack began. 40 combat drones, Bayraktars from Turkey alongside the newest Western designs, swept over the Black Sea, skimming barely 50 meters above the waves. Their approach was a masterclass in deception. Abrupt zigzags, terrain-hugging maneuvers, every algorithmic trick meant to make them invisible and unstoppable. But the Russian defenders saw through the code. High above Crimea, A-50U radar planes and S-400 missile batteries had been reading the enemy's playbook for days. As soon as the swarm breached Russian airspace, sensors locked on, spotting low-flying drones far beyond textbook range. Within 12 minutes, the sky turned lethal. 28 drones vanished, ripped apart by S-400 missiles fired from hidden launchers along the coast. The surviving dozen pressed on, only to be intercepted by fighter jets before they could threaten the base. None reached striking distance. No pause. As drone debris rained down, a second assault surged. A wave of 30 sea-based kamikaze drones, compact and nearly silent, linked by encrypted Starlink nodes. The boats sped for Sevastopol, aiming to slip past the outer security ring where radar vision blurred. Yet Russian patrol ships and helicopters were ready, their sensors and weapons fused into a single adaptive network. In mere minutes, 2/3 of the boats exploded, some shredded by patrol ship cannons, others torched by helicopter missiles, and a handful erased by fighter jets overhead. The response was seamless, each asset plugging gaps as new threats appeared. Then came the final test. The few surviving boats, fewer than 5, crossed into the innermost zone. Here, Russian electronic warfare took command. Jammers and spoofers blanketed the area, scrambling controls, injecting false signals, and freezing engines. Directionless, the last trio of kamikaze boats drifted into the kill zone, destroyed by close-in weapons, and finally, gunfire from alert sailors. Not a single attacker touched its intended target. The gulf between simulated war and real chaotic defense was exposed. This battle proved that digital models, without lived experience and human coordination, can fail completely, a lesson paid in machines, minute by minute. But the world was watching, and the aftermath would ripple far beyond the Black Sea. In every war room, new questions about the future of drone warfare and defense began to surface. Here is the real shock. The age of easy, tech-powered victories may be ending before it truly began. The failed assault on Sevastopol shattered the illusion that flooding a target with hundreds of cheap drones guarantees success against a modern prepared defense. Around the globe, observers watched hopes in mass and automation crash against a relentless, layered stronghold built for the 21st century. Western planners made critical mistakes. They trusted optimistic simulations, underestimated Russian depth, stuck to rigid playbooks, and failed to see how swiftly their adversary could adapt. In believing in technological supremacy, they overlooked that the other side was learning just as fast. The Russian defense stood on three pillars. First, a unified information network stitched together every layer, from radar to missile crews. Second, a relentless wave of electronic warfare jammed, spoofed, and blinded the incoming drones. Third, a physical shield, layered air defenses, naval guns, and mobile teams, waited to destroy anything that slipped through the chaos. Yet the decisive edge was not digital. It was the human factor. Disciplined coordination, experience, and the ability to improvise under fire. No algorithm can yet match the practiced teamwork that real crews brought to the defense, or the intuition honed in crisis. The outcome jolts militaries everywhere. Investments in drone swarms now face hard questions. Is it enough to build more? Or have we reached a threshold where quality, integration, and adaptability outweigh sheer numbers? Sevastopol's defense sets a new standard for what secure means in the era of unmanned war. It raises the bar, not just in tech, but in the synergy between humans and machines needed to survive the next test. Ignoring these lessons risks more than embarrassment. In the wars ahead, failure to adapt could spell disaster, both strategically and reputationally. The price of repeating these mistakes will only climb, especially for those who underestimate their enemies. But how did Sevastopol's defenders build such a formidable shield so quickly? And what exactly went wrong for the attackers? The answers reveal a new blueprint for future warfare. There is no longer any mystery about what makes a modern defense work. The template is out in the open, forged in the fires of Sevastopol. That battle destroyed the myth that victory belongs to those with the most hardware, the biggest fleets of drones, or the fastest chips. Machines alone did not win the day. Instead, it was the seamless union of sensors, shooters, and electronic countermeasures, each one guided by skilled, drilled operators, that turned the tide. The choreography of people and technology, not technology alone, proved decisive. Three pillars stood out as absolutely essential. First, real-time data had to flow from every available sensor, fusing into a single, trusted picture. Second, defenders needed total control of the electromagnetic spectrum, blinding and jamming attackers at critical moments. Third, the defense had to be layered, built in depth, so that the failure of one line could not unravel the entire system. These were not theoretical ideals. When hundreds of drones swarmed the base, every part of the chain, from satellites to soldiers, had to work in flawless concert. There could be no weak links. There was a harsh lesson too. No plan survives first contact if it is built only in simulations or digital models. Only teams that had been drilled under stressful, unpredictable conditions could adapt fast enough when chaos erupted. Training for the unexpected, not just the expected, made survival possible. Weapons and algorithms matter, but leadership and trust are just as vital. At Sevastopol, commanders empowered every team to improvise under pressure, and every operator knew their role without hesitation. Human judgment was the glue binding complex systems together. The future of warfare is not about who buys the most drones or builds the fastest processors. It is a contest of learning, adaptation, and speed, of who can sense, update, and outmaneuver their enemy, both in code and on the battlefield. Static plans and rigid defenses are doomed to fail. Only organizations that learn and flex in real time will endure. For militaries, nations, and even critical civilian infrastructure, the new playbook is clear. Designed for flexibility, redundancy, and deep integration of humans with machines. Build layers within layers. Expect the unpredictable. Eliminate single points of failure wherever they appear. Those who ignore these lessons will pay far more than a military price. They risk losing technological edge, global standing, and the credibility that underpins alliances and deterrence. In a world where war moves at machine speed, only those who adapt will survive. But what exactly happened during those critical hours at Sevastopol? To understand the new playbook, we need to dissect the attack and the defense in detail. If you still believe that sheer numbers always trump quality, the battle for Sevastopol in late October of 2025 should force a reckoning. For years, experts and enthusiasts alike embraced the promise of drone swarms and digital firepower, unstoppable, affordable, and inevitable. Yet on that windswept morning, hundreds of the world's most advanced unmanned systems, guided by powerful algorithms and the pooled resources of an entire alliance, crashed against a defense built on more than just high-tech gadgets. What met the attackers was not a static wall, but a living, layered network. Relentless human vigilance, adaptable doctrine, and cutting-edge electronic warfare. This was no easy target. The defenders did not simply react. They anticipated, coordinated, and transformed the battlefield minute by minute. Predictions of an effortless, overwhelming victory vanished in the first hour. Swarms that once seemed unstoppable were blinded, scattered, and dismantled by disciplined operators, and a defense in depth designed to turn mass into confusion. Jammers stripped drones of their senses. Command links dissolved into static. Surface-to-air batteries and fast patrol craft carved through attackers that, by every calculation, should have prevailed. Over the Black Sea, the myth of the invincible swarm died. No matter how many machines filled the sky or prowled the waves, it was the fusion of technology and human ingenuity that decided the outcome. Quality, coordination, and real-time adaptation unraveled the biggest, smartest arsenal the world had yet seen. Sevastopol 2025 is not simply a Russian triumph. It compels every defense planner, strategist, and policymaker to rethink the future. The lesson is unyielding. Mass-produced, networked solutions are not enough. Victory will go to those who blend innovation with anticipation, discipline, and the unpredictable power of the human mind. If leaders or citizens misread this turning point, clinging to outdated faith in technological magic or the brute force of numbers, they risk more than embarrassment. They gamble with their nation's security, its global influence, and the credibility that has long fueled digital optimism. Sevastopol is a warning shot. In the wars of the 21st century, triumph will not belong to those with the most gadgets, the largest stockpiles, or the slickest software. It will go to those who understand the shifting interplay of people, machines, and ideas, who adapt faster, question harder, and invest as much in imagination as in hardware. So ask yourself, are your views on modern conflict grounded in hope, in hype, or in the hard lessons revealed at Sevastopol? Because failing to learn from this battle does not just mean falling behind. It means risking everything that matters, strategically, technologically, and conceptually.